So welcome to this introduction to the Caduceus program. I think what I'm going to do is just start with a quick overview of the program and also go into the syllabi for the different modules to give you an idea, how you progress through the program. And to do that, I'm going to use the website as my sort of visual so that you have something to look at. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the Caduceus website. So here we are on the Caduceus website, which does need redesigning. In fact, I have a student who's a web designer who's going to help me with some of this. But for now, this will do. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background as an educator, since I'm the director of the program and I'm the one who put the whole thing together. I studied homeopathy at Pacific Academy in Berkeley, California, and started right around 1990, I think was the year that we started, and then I graduated in something like 1993. It was a 3-year program. It was one of the weekend programs where you went one weekend a month for, in this case, 3 years. So I went through that program, and because I have a lot of experience as a teacher, I was asked to become the first-year core instructor after I graduated. So I taught at Pacific Academy for 4 years. So I immediately launched into teaching as soon as I graduated from the program. And that was a fantastic experience because I was working with some very experienced homeopaths. But this was the concept of homeopathic education was just coming back, basically. There were very few programs anywhere in the country back in 1990. So we were kind of inventing homeopathic education at that time. And I had the advantage of working with the people who were formerly my teachers, who were now my colleagues. And we put together a complete professional training program in homeopathy. Then I did some teaching up in Oregon for a year or two, and then finally moved down to the Bay Area, the Santa Cruz area, and that's when I decided to start recording this distance learning program. So I had already had a number of years of doing this professional level teaching at that point, and just felt like, giving the same lecture over and over and over again to each year of students was kind of a waste of time. I really wanted to focus more on the clinical side of teaching, which is the exciting place where you actually learn how to do homeopathy with real clients. And so to be able to really have the time to do that and be able to focus on that, the advantages of recording the lectures and also having a distance learning program so that students in far-flung parts of the country where homeopathic education can't be found, people can study homeopathy from all different places in the country and even the world. So actually, now it's almost been 20 years since I started the Caduceus Institute, and I have to say, I think things have gone pretty well. I don't know if you've been to our graduate page, but I'll open it up now. So these are just some of the people, who've been through our training and how they have used their studies of homeopathy. Robin, who's right on top here, was one of our first distance learning graduates, and she's also done some teaching for our program. Ben Taati is actually was involved in a school called the American Medical College of Homeopathy in Phoenix, Arizona, which isn't very active right now, but a homeopathic medical school was started in Arizona, and he was brought onto the faculty of that. He's got a very successful, thriving practice in Phoenix, Arizona. Rosemary Hyde was a college professor in Berkeley before she became a homeopath. So she was also a very high-powered person, and she became really a specialist in working with people with cancer and chronic diseases based on some of her experience. And you can go back and read some of these. I won't go through all of them, of course, but here's another graduate, Helena, who has done some teaching for our program. And Will Cassilly has an advanced degree in psychology and works a lot with psychotherapists and helping people stay off antidepressants or else um, weaning off antidepressants and that sort of thing. So that's some of our graduates. I'll just go back here. So anyway, I founded this program because I had already been working on curriculum and teaching a professional level of homeopathy for about 5 years at that point, and then thought, you know, I'm going to record these lectures and then really be able to focus on the students, their work, and especially the clinical side of things. So sometimes people ask, well, how, you know, why is your program so affordable? In fact, people have said, oh, I'm almost afraid to enroll in your program. There must be something wrong with this. But if you, because we're so reasonable compared to other programs, but if you understand our background, the fact that, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel every year the way other programs are. Hi, we have somebody just coming on here, and hi. Might be good to mute a little bit. There's a little bit of noise there. Do you know how to mute?
No.
Let me see if I can mute her. Hold on a sec. It's a little bit noisy. But there is a way to do it. Okay, I've muted her. I can unmute her later. All right. So as I was saying, this is why our program is able to be reasonably priced, because the curriculum was already developed. It's not a matter of hiring teachers every single year and finding a place to do the lectures and all that kind of thing, which ends up costing a lot of money. So the distance learning idea, especially with our program, it's self-paced. So that means that you can start at any time and you can go as fast or slow as you like. So sometimes we have people in the program, for example, who have young children and a job and they want to study homeopathy, and maybe they only have a 3 to 5 hours a week maximum to put into their studies. So they go through the program more slowly. Whereas somebody who is retired or else has just doesn't have to work a 9-to-5 job and is very enthusiastic and motivated might go through the program literally 5 times as fast as that other person. So our program gives you that kind of flexibility to go as fast or slow as you like. Sometimes women take off and have babies and then come back once their babies are a little older, or if there's an illness or a death, different things happen in your life, you're able to take off time when you need to and then come back to the program when you're ready. So as I said, you know, what makes our program special? Well, as I said, I worked on designing this program for literally 5 years intensively before I started teaching the distance learning modules, by teaching 4 years at Pacific Academy and then another year up in Oregon. So I really knew what people needed to know and how I wanted to take them through the program when I did this, including bringing in guest instructors and things like that. And probably the most important point here is that the program is audio-based, meaning that you're actually hearing actual classes that were recorded. And this is really important because some distance learning programs are very much based on written material, and we have written material. We have a workbook that goes with each session, which I'll get into in a moment, but the written material is something that you follow along with as you are listening. So that audio component really brings your studies alive in a way that just looking at a book and trying to read through, or looking at, you know, some computer printout, something on a screen, it just won't do the same thing for you. So a lot of people are interested in certification, and I've been talking to some of you already today about this. There's a new organization, I'm going to just go to their website right now, called the Association for International Homeopathic Certification. I'm really excited about this. I was on the board of the Council for Homeopathic Certification, which is a little bit better known at this point, but that only covers North America. And I was, as I said, I served on the board for 10 years. I developed the protocols for reviewing casework for that organization, and was very active, but where right now I'm really feeling, for a variety of reasons, that this new certification organization is going to serve the needs of the schools and the students much better. So I'm just going to take you to their website for a minute. Now this organization is international in scope, and it's the people who are on the board is absolutely astounding for those of you who know anything about homeopathy. So Rajan Sankaran is on the board, another Indian doctor, Dr. Fasani, who I'm not as familiar with. This is another homeopath, Marina Brown, I'm not as familiar with. Some of these I don't know as well, but let me see, going down. Misha Norland, of course, runs the College of Homeopathy in the UK, which also has a distance learning program. Anshad is a very well-known homeopath in Munich. Jan Schulten, you may be familiar with his books. He's a very well-known homeopath that does a lot of research into mineral families and things like that. Janet Snowden is also a very, very well-known homeopath. Susan Sans is one that I talked to recently about this whole impulse that's coming up. So yeah, some of the top homeopaths in the world have come together to put together this new certification organization, which is going to start doing their exam, I believe, in 2017. So I'm really, and their standards are reasonable, and they seem to be committed to not changing their standards all the time, which has been an issue with the CHC. So yeah, I think that this could be a really wonderful way to certify for those of you who want to take an exam for certification. And of course, it's very important to understand that certification has nothing to do with professional licensure. A certificate, whether from a school or from an organization, does not enhance your legal status to practice. And that is what it does, is it kind of affirms your skills as a homeopath. And I think it's a good idea to have an outside certification that confirms your skills, so that it's not just a school that's telling you you're doing a good job, but somebody outside the school is doing that. But whether or not you need an exam is another question. In a lot of professions, it's based much more on demonstrating your skills in a clinical setting. So the other organization that does this sort of thing is the Society of Homeopaths. And this, the North American Society of Homeopaths, was basically founded longer. It's an older organization than the CHC, and it's basically founded to register professional homeopaths. And it was based on the RS Hom in the UK. For those of you that have heard of that before, a lot of the top homeopaths in the world are RS Hom, registered with the Society of Homeopaths. With the North American Society of Homeopaths, if you register with them, if you qualify and register, you become an RS Hom NA, which is for North America. So this is the website that you can explore. And basically, their standards are also reasonable. It's 500 hours of classroom training, and then you hand in actual cases and describe your practice in order to get registered with them. So it's a wonderful organization, and you can explore their website and learn a little bit about this. So if you're interested in getting your skills evaluated or confirmed by an outside organization, these are two that you can do. But as I said, this does not change your legal status. Your legal status really varies from state to state. And if you listened to or watched the presentation I did called Light of Homeopathy that I did last month. I explain about the health freedom laws, and that is really what gives you the permission to practice if you don't have a medical license or some license that already does give you that. And we do have a variety of students in our programs. Some are already licensed health professionals, and some are starting right from scratch to become homeopaths. So before I launch into talking about the actual classes or the actual modules, does anybody have any questions on this background that I've done so far?
A quick question. You went to school at the Pacific Academy. Did that have anything to do with the Pacific School of Oriental Medicine down in San Diego, Willa?
No, no, it did not.
Because my daughter is a graduate of the Pacific School of Oriental Medicine down in San Diego. And by the way, she has a very good practice up here in Brockton, Massachusetts right now. Very successful.
Oh, good. Well, maybe you can work with her with homeopathy. Because I use LM potencies, which we give people in water as a daily dose. The kind of homeopathy that I do, or the kind of dosing that I do, it's all classical, of course, goes very well with other modalities such as acupuncture, because often prescribers who do the single dose of a high C potency and weight, they are always discouraging their clients from going to acupuncturists and going into other modalities, which I don't have that problem. So I've always worked nicely with acupuncturists in my own practice.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a quick one, Willa, on any reason for the name Caduceus?
Aha! Good question. Well, the Caduceus is over here. The Caduceus is the healing staff. This is my version of it, where I have an actual, the snake is a lachesis snake, which is, lachesis is one of our snake remedies, and then I have a rose here. But the wand of Hermes is what a Caduceus is, and it's a symbol of healing, because the stem or the staff represents the spinal energy, and this, you know, like in yogic traditions, represents Kundalini energy. It's basically a symbol for energy healing, where the energy of the body is what does the healing. So that's where the Caduceus word. I kind of regretted it later because most people do not know what Caduceus means, and it's also really hard to spell if you don't see it. So it was not a great choice of a name. It has a lot of meaning for me, but it in terms of recognition, you know, naming your school something that people don't really know what that is not such a great idea. I have to remember that next time around. All right, so I will move on, I guess. I think I've covered everything sort of in terms of background. So I'm going to show you Module 1. Basically, the program consists of learning modules, and modules 1 through 6 are the foundational modules that give you the information that you need to practice homeopathy, the skills and the information. And then on the other side of things, we have the clinical modules, which are actual cases on DVDs, where you take the case off the DVDs. So the first 6 modules that I'm describing here are the foundational ones where you learn to do homeopathy. So Module 1 is unique in that it really teaches you how to do acute homeopathy. Hahnemann had some of his most amazing successes with acute epidemic disease, but for some reason, modern homeopaths sometimes even refuse to treat it. So it's very well described in the Organon, and I feel it's very important for people to learn this because it's a way to use homeopathy within, you know, by the time you finish Module 1, you know how to take an acute case nicely, and you know you will learn 30 important remedies in acute case taking. Acute meaning a disease that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. rather than a chronic disease, which just goes on and on. You know, an example of acute disease would be like a bladder infection or a cold. An example of a chronic disease would be something like asthma or depression. Or lupus even. So we learn about acute disease in the first module, and it gives you the skills that you can go out and use right away with your friends and family, or for health professionals, you can start using it. Chiropractors can start using it, you know, with their patients. So each session, there are 6 sessions in every module, and each session has these different areas. In the first module, you learn how to take an acute case. We go through it step by step, how to take the case, how to analyze it, how to choose a potency, etc. So each session builds on the skills in that. Each session also covers a different therapeutic topic. So for example, in session 1, we talk about psycho-emotional conditions. In session 2, I think it's upper musculoskeletal, then upper respiratory infections. And so in the therapeutic section, you learn a whole group of remedies that are really good for that particular condition, such as upper respiratory infections. And then we also present a bunch of acute cases about upper respiratory infections. And then you learn how to use that section of the repertory as well. So the whole thing is integrated. So you learn how to deal with upper respiratory infections in that one session. And then, of course, the materia medica are the remedies that are associated with that particular topic, and the cases, as I mentioned. So this is the syllabus for Module 1. We go through the organon paragraph by paragraph in the first few modules. So we study a few paragraphs of the organon. Then you start learning about the repertory, homeopathic terminology, etc. And then the therapeutic section for session 1 is travel, insomnia, acute anxiety, exhaustion, and grief. So we present some acute cases for all those topics, and also here's the materia medica, the remedies that we study in that section, in that session. So after each session will take you about 5 hours. It's about 5 to 6 hours of recorded class. And so you can go through that at your own pace. And in the actual class, it explains the homework and the quizzes and all of that. And when you send in your homework, we send you, that's our cue to send you your quiz. So that's how we know that you're ready, since it's a self-paced program. There's only one piece of homework that actually gets sent in. The rest is corrected in class. So you correct it yourself later, but you do hand in a piece of homework for each of these sessions. So when you get through all of these sessions where you're learning how to do acute homeopathy and going through the organon paragraph by paragraph, at the end you will have learned everything you need to know about acute case taking, and at that point you will hand in a project, which is basically an acute case that you have taken yourself and written up according to the guidelines that we give you. So that's Module 1. Any questions on what I've described so far?
Nope.
No? Okay.
No.
So I'll go much more briefly onto the other modules now that you have an idea of the structure of them. I'll just describe them more briefly. Module 2 is where you learn how to take a chronic case. And during this module is when I encourage people, if they can, to do some of our online clinic. Our online clinic meets in the same meeting room that we're meeting in right now. And during online clinic, you're actually able to observe me take a case, ask questions of the client yourself, and then once the client leaves, we work together and work out an analysis and choose a remedy and a potency. And it's an incredible learning experience. And you can start that as soon as you start Module 2. So you learn how to take a case in Module 2, a chronic case in this case, which is very different from an acute case, because you're going all the way back into the client's history from their mother's pregnancy and birth, and and just really going into a lot of detail. As you may know, chronic case taking on the average takes about 2 hours, probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. So the study of the organon continues. You learn how to take a chronic case and start getting some ideas about how to organize it. And the therapeutic topics continue in Module 2. So there's dermatology in Session 1, and we focus on the dermatological remedies and acute dermatology cases. Gynecology in Session 2, and again with remedies and cases. Urogenital, Session 3, pregnancy and childbirth, Session 4. And then at that point, we're done with our therapeutics, and we go more into chronic case analysis. So that's Module 2. Module 3 starts getting you involved in case management and what you need to do once the client comes back after you've given them the first remedy, and then you're going into the second prescription, what we call obstacles to cure and aggravation. So obstacles to cure, things that are going on in the person's life that may be a problem in terms of healing. We talk about provings. We do a lot more case analysis. We continue studying the repertory. There's a little bit on homeopathy for animals. So these are some of the topics in Module 3. And at this point, you're analyzing chronic cases and you're handing in chronic cases as well. So we're looking at your work, and you are able to, get feedback on your own chronic cases. Now, this Module 4, I'm told, is the meatiest. Except for Module 4 and Module 6 are the ones that really have a lot to do. There's a lot of work from what students are telling me. Somehow it just ended up that the assignments are a little more weighty, but you learn more too, obviously. So in Module 4 is where we go into myosins. And the myosins that we teach, let's see if I can stop that sound there. I'm not sure what's going on, but okay. The myosins that we teach are based on Hahnemann's chronic disease. We don't go into the different modern theories of miasms, such as Rajan Sankaran. We teach you the basic miasms as Hahnemann taught them. And then we also do teach a little bit about tuberculinum and carcinosin as well. So the syllabus again, we have our guest instructors, some wonderful physicians from India, Dr. Vaishnav. There are 2 Dr. Vaishnavs, a husband and wife. The wife specializes in OBGYN, and actually these 2 doctors now live up in Silicon Valley. At the time they were coming from India and doing this teaching for us. So those are some of our guest lecturers coming in, and we study the nosodes, which are remedies that are made from the actual diseases. And we study the miasms, which is a big topic in homeopathy, these kind of propensities towards disease. And then Module 5 goes into some advanced studies, and Module 5 is when you start handing in your own cases in terms of a full case taking and a full analysis and even a follow-up. So at this point, you're really developing your skills to work on your own. And we have guest lectures from Dr. Farooq Master. He does an incredible lecture on the snake remedies. He's a very well-known homeopath. Dr. Vijay Vaishnav came back and did some more lectures for us. We also have an interesting lecture on homeopathic history and some information on nutrition as well. So in this module, your homework is mostly the chronic cases that you're handing in of your own. And then Module 6 is our newest module, and this was taught by Hart Matthews, who's one of our graduates. And he's a quite brilliant scholar type person. And he taught this module on my request because I thought this would be an incredibly good additional information for our program. This was just taught, let's see, when did it finish? Did it finish this year or last year? It just finished in the last few months, the people who were going through this part live. So this came, 17 years after I developed the rest of the program, and that's how important I thought this was. It's based, the main text for this book, for this module, is Aleister Gray's Method. And in the book Method, he basically has a chapter on all these different ways to analyze a case. And so what Hart did was he went through the book and basically taught people all these different systems according to different kinds of, depending on the case, what system of analysis in a lot of detail. It's, from what I understand, a lot of work, this module. My students I didn't actually attend the classes myself. They were taught online, and I was too busy to attend them, but my students tell me it's about twice the amount of work of all the other modules. But basically you're getting a good bang for your buck, because we're just charging the same thing as we do for the other modules. But he ended up teaching a lot of sessions, as you can see. I told him to keep it down to 6 sessions, but he ended up making it 8, but they are very long. There's 1A, there's 1B. You kind of stretch them all out. So there's a lot of information, and really a good way to kind of integrate everything else that you've learned and learn some special ways based on some of our more modern homeopaths, such as Jan Schulten, Mangia Lovari, who's an Italian homeopath who does wonderful work. Sankaran, of course, is there. And then some of our older homeopaths like Herring, Burnett. So there's really an incredible variety of analysis strategies that he teaches in this Module 6. So I'm very excited that we're offering this now. And then the clinical training, again, you can start the clinical training as early as Module 2. So it's not like you do Modules 1 through 6 and then start the clinical training. You can start it as soon as you want. I suggest that you start with the online clinical training so that you really get a sense of the live experience before you go into the clinical, the distance learning modules. So the distance learning modules for the clinical training consist of DVDs of actual cases. And, oh, you know what I skipped? I didn't talk about the Practicum module. Where is that? I guess the Practicum module we don't really have described on this website. Okay, well, we need to get to that. So there's one other step called the Practicum module, which basically is also actual cases, and it includes the analysis. So they are recordings of prior clinics. So what you do is you are actually able to observe the case taking and then listen to the analysis and see how we analyzed and chose the remedy for people. So the clinical training, as I said, there's these 2 ways to do it. There's the online clinical training where we generally meet about every other week for 2.5 hours. So it's been so far it's been on Monday afternoons. So if you are able to do that, it's a great way to get some clinical training. However, to get more clinical training and to make it a more intensive experience, it is good to do the distance learning modules as well. So those, as I said, consist of DVDs that you return to us after you've watched them compare actual cases. So I'm going to go to the certification page to see how this kind of all pulls together. Does anybody have any questions right now? You can unmute yourself if you do. Okay, it doesn't look like anybody does. So I talked about the certification organizations. We also are offering our own school certification, a certificate in acute homeotherapeutics when you finish Module 1. And then when you finish Modules 1 through 6, you receive a certificate in Foundations of Homeopathy. And then if you complete all of that, plus the practicum and clinical modules, you get a CPH, a certificate in professional homeopathy. So the way that it breaks down again is the modules 1 through 6 gives you 300 hours of training toward your 500 that both NASH and the certification organizations require. And then phase 2 is the practicum module, which consists of online, well, actually it's cases that we send you now. We send you the cases, so you don't have to go online. We send them to you on a little flash drive. And it's 25 online cases are sort of on the flash drive that include, as I said, include the analysis and the discussion and all of that. So it's like attending our online clinic, except you don't get to, obviously, because it's a recording, you don't get to participate in the conversation, but you do get to observe that. And then the actual clinical training, 250 hours of clinical training, you can get with our DVD cases that we send to you, and you analyze them according to the structure that we give you. And then you can complete your clinical training that way. So the whole program, if you register for the whole program at once and avoid the multiple registration fees, because every time you register for one or more modules, there's a $100 registration fee. So the entire program, $5,875. And so if you registered for the modules one at a time, it would be about $1,000 more than that. And then there are also textbooks that you buy, and we have a page on Whole Health Now website where we have below anybody else's prices on all of our textbooks. So you can get a good price on your textbooks, and there's a page just for our school that tells you the books that you need. You can also buy the books in other places if you prefer. So those are your expenses. The other expense is the online clinics are done on a seasonal basis. So we have a spring clinic, a summer clinic, and so you can enroll in them quarterly, and they're not included in the price of this in this price either. So yeah, those are some things I wanted to show you about our program. So do you have any questions at this point for me?
Something I really want to pursue.
It's something you want to pursue? Yeah, great. Good. Well, so that's basically how our program runs. We give you feedback on your work. I think a few more things I might want to say. We give you feedback on your work on a weekly basis. So you can hand in your work for the week and we'll send you feedback on that. Some of the ways we communicate with our students is we have online meetings just like we're having now. And we discuss all kinds of topics. Sometimes it's a case that a student wants to present, or our last topic was actually one of our graduates wanted some tips on getting her practice going and starting a practice. And so we talked about that. Sometimes it has to do with things that are going on currently. If there's an outbreak of a disease, we might talk about that disease and what some remedies might be. So it's a time that we can just get together and talk about what's current for everybody, and we do that once a month. And we also have a very lively Yahoo discussion group where people are chatting and talking about their studies and talking about their cases, and people get a lot of support that way. You know, somebody wrote in recently saying, I'm in the hospital right now, my husband fell and, you know, had a severe head injury, and he also has a kind of dementia, and this is what's going on, and I can't even think straight. Could anybody please give me some ideas for remedies? You know, that kind of thing. People will reach out for help for what's going on in their lives and their families, or that kind of thing. And we have a lot of graduates who are instructors and graduates who are also there, and so a lot of people can answer. When somebody asked, actually this happens every few months, somebody asks about computer programs because people get to the point where they want a computer program, and luckily Hart Matthews is very experienced. He works for Kimalia, who used to represent Radar and now represents McRepertory. So he's completely familiar, uses both programs all the time. I also have both programs, but I used to use McRepertory and now I use Radar, so I'm more familiar with Radar. So yeah, there are a lot of interesting things to discuss. I don't want to overwhelm anybody with a lot of details. My main intention was just to give you an idea of what the program is like and see if you had any questions for me about it.
Just a quick one there, Willa. You mentioned about taking your own cases at times during the module. At some point you start to obtain your own cases. But you're not necessarily in practice. I guess these are just people who are willing to have you take them as a case. I'm not sure quite how that works.
Yeah, it's basically that. It can be friends and family who want to help you out and let you try, practice their case taking. And then when word gets out that you're studying homeopathy, it may end up being people who really are looking for your help and, want to get some help and in exchange for being a guinea pig for you. So,
Yeah.
but in the beginning, it's good, to have it be friends and family who are willing to go through the process with you so that you can learn how to do it yourself.
Right.
So you kind of need to cultivate friends and family in that direction.
Yeah.
It's easier. The people who have the easiest time, for like myself, when I was going through school, I was a mother of 3 young children. So I automatically, knew a lot of other moms. Their kids were getting sick. I knew what problems were going on in different people's family, that kind of networking. I realized for those of us who are older and in professions where we don't necessarily network so closely with people, it may be more difficult, but that would be something you would want to be able to do. Another thing you can do, and is another thing that I've done, is once you've got at least some experience, and you could even do this on an acute level, is go and do some volunteer work at a homeless shelter or at a recovery facility or something like that, and start working with people who normally could not afford to go see a homeopath. So that's another option. But good question.
Question, well, I don't know if it's appropriate, but I know in our part of the country, every town seems to have a council on aging, and they're always looking for somebody who had to basically give a talk on homeopathy, and as a result of that, you may have some people in the audience who may have some situations.
Well, that's true. Absolutely. You were saying
the
council on aging?
For instance, up in this part of the country, Boston University School of Medicine is now, part of it is located at the old Boston City Hospital, which originally was Boston Homeopathic Hospital.
Oh, great. Well, you can tell them why it used to, what it was like there when it was Boston Homeopathic Hospital. That's great.
I was involved in some studies. Walking down the hallways, I saw the old horse-drawn ambulances with Boston Homeopathic Hospital on them.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, there was a lot of that. That's, homeopathy was really big 100 years ago, or a little bit more at this point. Anyway, so yeah, those definitely reaching out and doing education is always good. To teach people about homeopathy, and can also be a way to get people who might be willing to let you practice on them in a safe way, of course. So Okay, any other questions or anything else? All right, well, thank you for joining us.